Welcome to Glue Wednesday. GLUE, God's love undoes everything. And I call it Glue Wednesday because so often people look at Wednesday as hump day. Whereas I look at Wednesday as the middle of a traditional work or traditional 7-day week that connects the weekend and the week beginning together. So Wednesday is the glue rather than the need to hump to get over, but the need to keep it together. So that was an introduction because most people will be watching the live, the recorded broadcast. And now I can go to our live thing. And hey, Angie, first person on, and Tosca, you know I always kill myself with your name, but what's up down here in the ATL? Love you all the time. All right. Yeah, we've got less than 3 minutes. We'll start on the hour. I've got a line going across the top of my screen. Do you? I don't know what that is. And so it doesn't look like it's cutting my head off, like if I lean back. But otherwise, I've got this line right here. Do you see this line? Do you see a black line on your screen? And so a love pop up there from Angie. But it's not blocking anything. Like right now, I'm above the line and it's across my eyes. So that's cool. And isn't that life? Sometimes you're above the line. Nope, everything looks good on your end. Okay, so oh, you know what it's like when your TV is starting to get old and it gets a line going through it. And you keep saying, oh, no, my TV is fine. We just got two colors on the top, one different color on the top and a different color on the bottom. In fact, I was at a friend's house. We got less than 2 minutes. I was at a friend's house the other day, and he has it's a faint line going across the middle. It's not always there, and it was a news program, a talk show, and in fact, it was a debate. That's not important. But the thing is that when they switched to one of the women, because of the way the line going, it wasn't a straight line. It was just like fuzz, and it looked like she had a tattoo on her neck, you know, based on the design, because it didn't just stay stick. It was doing like this, coming and going. And so for a second, I said, wow, why does she have that tattoo? And that's when it dawned. That's when I cracked up and saw it move and realized that it was actually the line on the TV. So. Yeah, I'm going to actually talk a little bit about technology today. That won't be the topic. We got less than a minute and we get started. But yeah, technology is interesting, and there's so many things that we need to realize and recognize about how we use, or even how we've been used by technology, and not being negative, but just recognize that sometimes technology just does use us, or if it gets misused or unused or underused, that sometimes that will end up being a consequence that we have to live with as well. And all of that does end up becoming what? Our roadmap toward making a better life for ourselves and the people that we live with. Hey, Tina. So everything really is good. Those of us who are in the spirit of God, we like to say everything works out for the good of God. We can't just use that as a cliche. We've got to say it and we've got to believe it. And sometimes it's tough, but just right there is why it's tough, because we say it is. And, because there's so much power in the word. If you say it's tough, it is. And I'm not saying that we need to be in denial, but that we need to recognize that we can acknowledge it being tough only as a way to identify what we're getting ready to fight against. Okay? Think about it that way. Say, oh, wow, this is a tough situation. Okay, and then let's get right to figure, okay, what am I going to do about this tough situation? When you get in a tough situation, what you want to do is just put in perspective. Think about, okay, what are the challenges in this situation? Think about the worst case scenarios, and then think about the best case scenarios, and then decide to prepare yourself to deal with the best case scenario. You see how that works? Think about the worst and the best case scenarios, but then think about how you're going to deal with the best case scenarios, because that's what your goal is, and that's where you're coming. Like we say, we're going through something. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. What are you going to do once you get through? Okay? Got to believe it. I hear you, Tina. I am cancer-free. Amen. Gotcha. Right, and wasn't part of the freeness from the cancer is the faith and belief. You got to have the positive attitude. I mean, everybody always says it, and we do like to believe it, but then we get the noise. I was speaking with a group last night, and I talked to them about the music that we have in our lives. And the music is sometimes the noise that we hear from different people around us. You have to change the music in your life. And that means also that sometimes you have to change the people in your life. I'm living the best case scenario. Amen. Thank you for that, Tina. All right. Hey, what's up? Oh, my. What's up, Kevin? All right. That's my brother from Toastmasters. Man, really enjoyed you at the conference and glad to see that things are going well. I'm going to get rolling with today's topic because what I want to do is like I say, I'm going to kick off with a poem. Actually, wow, this is one of my, no, not one of my, this is actually the oldest poem that hey, what's up, Jesse? This is actually the oldest poem that I was able to save, because that's the thing I always try to encourage poets, because many poets like myself, we start out as closet poets. What that means is that we didn't really want people to know what we were writing. We just wrote, and you just hit it, you put it somewhere. It wasn't really a conscious thing. I'm not going to let people know, but it's kind of what you do, because you just write the poem, especially for us guys, because it talked a lot about our, sensitivities. And so, it was a way to just write the poem, get that feeling out, and then we moved on. But one of the things I also encourage poets to do, and now with the technology, more of them get to do it anyway, but I used to save my poems in a loose leaf, a spiral notebook. Some old school, you with me? Remember a spiral notebook? Hey, Deb, a spiral notebook. Well, when you turn the pages on a spiral notebook, eventually they wear out. And so I lost a lot of my poetry based on trying to save them in the spiral notebooks. And so what I used to do before all this computer stuff came is I would always encourage poets to use those composition books. Remember the black ones with the white, and then they turn them into different colors, but they were bound. And so I always used to tell my poets, write your poetry in those so that you don't lose them. The other beautiful part about putting it in that book, that type of book, is that you can see the progress and the changes in your life from the different types of poetry that you wrote. Because, there was a time, you could see the different, where your mind was. I was in a revolutionary state of mind when I started writing poetry. Then I found, and now I don't remember the order, by the way, but there was a time where I was in a love state of mind. And then there was a time where I was in this, but, so you see the different moves that you have as a writer. And guess what that does? That helps your audience, because you become a more compassionate and in tune writer for the needs of what the people need to have delivered through your spirit, because you're being able to write and express yourself poetically is a gift that is needed by other people, so that they can identify and maybe express an emotion through you and be thankful that you were able to write it for them. So hey, Haas. So this poem is actually the first poem, and I wrote this poem at 16 years. I might have written it at 14, but I always credit myself as having written this poem at 16 years old. And it's called Don't You Realize That You Don't Know Me? And remember, as teenagers, that was one of the big things, and even less than teenagers, that was one of the big things, is that we always would tell you, oh, you don't know me, because as teenagers, when they got that peer pressure thing, we're starting to get over it, and we're starting to feel ourselves, we're starting to get more responsibility, or at least a little bit more rope to hang ourselves with, and, a longer curfew. And so we're trying to find ourselves as an adult. Hey, Jamal, we're trying to find ourselves as adults. So we start to get into that stage as a teenager of saying to people that they don't know us. So I wrote this poem, Don't You Realize You Don't Know Me? And I wrote it to that person that gets on our nerves at one time or another. Yes, I wrote this poem to my mother. And some of you may laugh, as I always say when I'm doing it live and I say that and people laugh, I say, oh, you know my mother? But I wrote that poem, I dedicated it to my mother, because at the time, my mother was one who, I always say she went to PU, right, Parent University. And I think that parents learn how to say, I know you, I raised you, I know you, I brought you into this world, right? And then we all say, and I can take you out and make another one like you. Okay, right? So mothers were always telling us that they know us. And growing up inside, we might have been fighting that battle, hey, Kevin, to say, no, you don't know me. So that's what this poem was. As my mother used to always say, don't you realize, my mother used to say, I know you. And now I've updated, by the way, the dedication from just talking about my mother to a lot of the people in our lives who tell us that they know us. Because think about some of the other people who tell you that they know you. You've got your friends, you've got your siblings, you've got your teachers, and that's always a big hit when I'm talking to kids. And I say, yeah, your teachers, because the teachers always say, well, your brother was, your sister was in my class, I know you. And so, so you've got a lot of people in your life telling you that they know you. Hey, Kenneth, happy 25th. We got a lot of people telling you that they know you, and the key is, how well do you know yourself? So again, as you hear this poem, you have to realize that someone is saying the same thing about you. Don't you realize that you don't know me? Because haven't we done that same thing to someone else, telling them that we know them based on the tendencies or the history of their family or their sex or their age? We are always telling someone that we know them. And me taking it literally, because I know we don't always mean it when we say it, but I take it literally, and I certainly took it literally when I wrote this poem. So this is, don't you realize that you don't know me? How many times have I heard, I knew you'd do that. It figures you'd say that. Please don't tell me that you know me, because you only insult my intelligence. Don't you realize you don't know me? Have I so shallow a mind that you can pick me apart at will? Are my actions really predictable? While looking through your drinking glass crystal ball, is my voice really always monotone? Don't you realize you don't know me? Don't you realize that you only know what I let you know? And don't you realize that I could never let you know me, even if I wanted to? Because I don't really know myself. Don't you realize you don't know me? Don't you know that what you knew I do, I didn't know I do, even after I did what I did, like you knew I do it? And don't you know that what you figured I'd say, I didn't figure I'd say, even if I said what I said, like you figured I'd say it? Don't you realize you don't know me? Don't you realize that you don't know me? And I always say it that fast because that's how quickly it happened. Don't you know, and I'll say it in a slow way, slowly, don't you know that what you knew I do, I didn't know I do? Even after I did what I did, like you knew I do it. And have you ever had that happen? Oh, I knew you were going to knock that glass over. You're a jinx. But why didn't you just move the glass? I didn't know. Right? And don't you know that what you figured I'd say, I didn't figure I'd say. Even after I said what I said, like you figured I'd say it. And haven't we all been in that situation where we said something where we kind of regret it, we wish we could pull the words back? My mother would say, Sporty, go clean up your, I'm not cleaning up nothing. Just kidding, Mom. I'll go clean it up. Yeah, we've all said something that we regretted. And that's the part of the maturity process. We have to get better at holding back some of the thoughts that come to our mind, picking and choosing where we need to say them. But the key is, again, it's not so important how well other people know you. The key is, how well do you know yourself? Do you know your best smile? Do you know your best profile? Do you know how you look when you're just walking down the street? I say to people all the time, take the time to check yourself out. Look in the mirror and give yourself a wink. Let me say, look, give yourself a wink. When you're walking down the street, look at yourself in the storefront, the store windows. Check yourself out. Somebody, well, that's kind of conceited. No, and you check yourself out. What is ZBK? Hey, my sister, my love. When you check yourself out, because you walking down the street and everybody's looking at you as you go by, and you feel, yeah, everybody checking me out. When maybe, in fact, you got a piece of toilet paper stuck to your shoe, and that's what they're checking out. Or something, the way your suit or something is tucked in wrong. Check yourself out, because you are always being checked out. I always say, choose your messengers carefully, because you are going to be someone else's messenger as well. We are looking at one another in a physical mind, in a physical outlet. We're looking at people and we're judging them based on how they look. So everybody's checking you out. And then it's only when they get the chance to know you that you will find, that will find out who you are. Check out that you are fine. That's right, that. And y'all know that's one of my other books. Do you have any idea how fine you are? You have to check yourself out, and you have to feel good about you before you can expect someone else to feel good about you. Because P.S., by the way, why would you be so concerned how someone else feels about you if you don't know how you feel about yourself? So I love how that walks us again right into my topic today. Because what I want to ask you is, how do you define yourself? You know, let's go from don't you really know me to how do you define yourself? Here's a formula I could give you, because sometimes we don't take enough time to define ourselves. I believe that each one of us must spend ample time putting our personal concerns as primary to living our lives and purpose in life. And I know that can sound weird, so putting your personal concerns first. Yes, you have to put your personal concerns first, because what are your personal concerns? Your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Once you take care of yourself, now you can take care of everybody else in your life. So put you first. Well, you can't put yourself first if you don't know who you are. So how do you define yourself so that you can be there to help everyone? What's up, Denise, Mama Dada? You know, you want to make sure that you define yourself so that you can help the people that you need to help in your life. So here's what I'd like you to do. And think about it. Everybody get ready to type. And what I want you to do is just type in what I'm going to call your perspective. I tell you what, let's just go with the numbers. Use the number 1 for yes. Okay? So, or we'll use the 1 as an I, me. How many of you grew up in a large family? Just go in and type a 1. Just click a 1. How many grew up in a large family? I'm looking for 1. I tell you what, I got a better idea, because we're only going to be here forever. Click on the likes, because maybe sometimes, you know, technology don't always work. Oh, there goes that. Yeah, right. We grew up in a large family. Yeah, no, you know what? I want people to see this, and I want you to be able to look back at this. So how many grew up in a large family? Okay, maybe a lot didn't. How many grew up in a small family? Put a 2. If you grew up in a small family, put a 2. All right? Large family, a 1. Small family, a 2. All right? Large family, a 1. Small family, a 2. Okay, next 2 numbers, a 3 and a 4. How many of you are in the oldest 2 of your family, and put a 3, or if you're in the youngest 2 of your family, put a 4. Okay, if you're either the oldest or the oldest 2 of your family, put a 3. If you're the youngest or the youngest 2, put a 4. Okay, and one more thing, how many of you are aunts? If you're an aunt, put a 5. If you're an uncle, put a 6. Okay, aunts put a 5, uncles put a 6. So we've got large and small family, up older children, younger children, aunts and uncles. I know that. Okay, I got to get one more category. How many grew up in a big city? Put a 7. And if you grew up in a small city, put an 8. Big city 7, small city 8. Y'all are going to love when you go back and look at these numbers. Okay, and then I'll rewrite them. Okay, big city 7, small city 8. Here's my point. Look at the numbers, and you see that we've got a mix of numbers. From 1 to 6, 7. Okay, I need some 8s. How many grew up in a small city or small town? Put an 8. Okay, we got any 8s? We got all 7s. Everybody grew up in big cities. Okay, we got any 8s? Here, give me 8, give me 8, give me 8, give me 8. Come on, 8, 8, 8. Okay, only child. Thank you, Tina. I left that one out. So, but the only child you can put 3 as the oldest. In fact, you can put 3 and 4, right? Only child, and 5 and 3 and 4, because you were oldest and the youngest. All right. All right. Okay. What's up, Don? All right. Here's the deal. When you look at all those numbers, what you are seeing is all of the different perspectives that we're coming from. All of the different perspectives. We're in the same area. We're sharing the same area and the same ideology in terms of, hey, I want to be in on Glue Wednesday, right? Me and Sporty are cool. Whatever your thinking. But look at all the perspectives that we're coming from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we didn't have any 8s, but we may have them when people go back and think about it. Here's my point. especially as a speaker, but as someone in life. If I'm talking to an audience, these are all of the different perspectives that are getting my message in my audience. There's no way that I'm going to reach every single one of those people. So what I have to do is I have to recognize that not only in my speaking audience, but you need to recognize that in your life, everybody's coming at it from a different angle. So if you don't have enough analogies to make the connections, to find the similarities, because so often our society wants us to focus on the differences. If you can't find the similarities to help a person who's an 8 show that they can connect with the person who's a 1, a 5 with a 3, you have to have the similarities. So what we have to do is therefore accept the fact that if I'm a 1, 5, 3, that I'm not going to automatically reach everybody else. So why would I put that pressure on myself that I have to reach everybody else and that everybody has to agree with me? What I have to do in terms of putting any type of pressure on myself is relieving myself and recognizing what I have to do is understand that someone's going to disagree with me. And so now, again, what I have to do is I have to define who I am. So that's what I say to you. How do you define yourself? And here's the sentence that I use in a group for us to define ourselves. After I ask everybody where they're coming from, here's the sentence. I approach life from the perspective of being an or a, and in my case, I approach it from being an uncle. I approach life from the perspective of being an uncle. My favorite color, what's your favorite color? Everybody go on and write, it's real interactive today. Go on and write your favorite color in there. Write your favorite color in. In fact, if you want to be fast, what's the perspective that you approach life from? Well, we got enough of the numbers, but pick one. What's your perspective that you approach life from, and what's your favorite color? So mine, I approach life from the perspective of being an uncle, and my favorite color is blue. How do you approach life? What perspective? When you get information, you're getting this information right now, and where are you coming from? Tina's favorite color is orange. And Tina, how do you approach? What's your perspective? As an only child, what do you most identify with in this case? Okay, Haas, blue, all right? And don't forget the perspective, y'all. I know we had the numbers already, but if you were to say, even though mine was a number, it was the uncle, but I approach life from being an uncle, and my favorite color is blue. I'm going to keep on rolling with us. There we go. Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Dondi. Yeah, once y'all start to see these things, this becomes almost like when we see those research things, Survey Monkeys and all of that. When we see these things, we can make our own statistics, all right, basically. So here's my point. And obviously Deb is doing purple and green, but she can't approach life from that of being an uncle. Haas can't approach life as being an uncle because I know him, and I know that his brother didn't have any children. See, so he's approaching it as what? As a dad, or as a husband, a fiance, or as a ball player, whatever. Oh, Tina, approaching as an only child in the aura of orange. There you go, Haas. I knew it was as a father, okay? Zet, I know she can approach from a grandmother. That's probably her favorite because she loves her granddaughter, okay? So here's my point. Hey, Gerald. Okay, so here's my point. Whatever your perspective is of how you're approaching life, and then whatever your favorite color is, then a stepdad, okay? I call that a tone check. You see, no one can question you about how you approach life. So when you type that in, could you hear yourself saying, I approach life from the perspective of a father. I approach life from the perspective of an only child in the aura of orange. It's a statement that you don't have to question it, and no one gets to say you can't approach life from that perspective, and that's not your favorite color. Now, in a whole seminar, we would go on to where I'd also go around and ask them to tell me why that's their favorite color. But I'm saying to you that you can use that sentence to give yourself what I call a tone check in terms of defining who you are. I approach life from a perspective of an uncle. My favorite color is blue because such and such. I'm saying that with a confidence that if ever is a situation where I need to express anything else, I can hear how I sound when I'm totally confident and know that no one can refute what I say or what I believe. Is that sinking in? So in other words, when you get to those situations and those conversations where you need to state your point or talk about something, can you hear yourself, how you sound when you're confident about saying your name, your perspective, and your favorite color? Hearing how you sound when you say that, that's how you want to sound when you're taking a stand. Because a lot of times when we don't believe in what we're saying, what happens? The voice drops. Or we back off a little. So start to notice that with people, and you'll see that. So in a seminar, that's one of the exercises I use. And then as we go around, I can actually hear it, and make points with certain people about how they did that. So once you figure out how you, your perspective and how you approach life, and all the information that you're getting the same information, it helps you start to define who you are. Walks us right into my favorite acronym, FOCUS, F-O-C-U-S, in my first F's in life, and that is finding ourselves creates unlimited success. Focus on you and let other people come into focus. So as you work toward defining who you are, what you have to do is focus on yourself. And BS, by the way, a lot of times, even when I do this exercise, hey, Vicki, hey, Robin, when I do this exercise in the seminar, most people hesitate. Because, see, we're good at focusing on, we can rattle off the favorite color of our children or our best friend, our spouse, our mother, significant other, whatever, but we don't sometimes know how we feel about something. Take your time and focus on you. Focus on you and let other people come into focus. Also, in terms of how you want to define yourself, what traditions do you use? What traditions have you started in your family, and which ones are you keeping? So again, we won't have to answer, but I want you to think about it. So when we're defining ourselves, what perspective of life are we coming from? Because that makes a difference. The favorite color and why is really just a tone check so that you can be confident about what you feel. But also ask yourself, what traditions have you started with your family, and which ones are you keeping? And for instance, don't, a lot of respect your elders. Don't just give lip service to elders. This is, have a flashback of joy where you can only imagine what your ancestors went through to free you and your spirit, to feed you and your spirit. See, we have no clue of what our ancestors went through. Please write that acronym. I will, okay? I will get that in there, Tina, at the end, on focus. And so, but, we have, when you talk about respecting your elders and tradition, we have no idea of what our elders and our ancestors went through because we didn't have the technology back then. See, a lot of what's going on in our life today is based on the advancement of technology. I grew up in New York City. I didn't need to know what was going on in California, and so I don't. But now we have access to more information of what's going on everywhere. And in some cases, that's why I say technology has hurt us, because now we know a little bit more about things that have been going on. And even though I say hurt, it actually has made us more aware. And sometimes in that awareness, we see the atrocities that are going on everywhere else. And it changes our look at our social perspective. Now, that's why it's important to know what perspective you're coming from and what traditions you carry. And recognize the lack of technology profiled a higher sense of responsibility, compassion, and creativity to get you in position so that you can have the same. See, because there was no technology, our ancestors, and all of us, PS, by the way, have ancestors, and we all come from strength, because when you think about what they didn't have, I did a post the other day, it might have been yesterday, when you think about what they didn't have emergency rooms, they didn't have anesthesia, there was a lot of stuff that our ancestors didn't have, and they still had to make it through. So there had to be strength in your blood for you to still be here, okay? But they didn't have technology. And because they didn't have technology, they had to be more responsible to themselves and to one another. They had to be more compassionate to themselves and to one another. And they had to be more creative. And we see that all the time, where we hear someone, brandishing our children. They don't know how good they have it. We had more creativity. We had less stuff to play with. We had to be creative. Stop taking credit for something that we didn't have a choice but to be creative, okay? But I loved how that walked us into what today is, and what Jamal said when he came on. He said, "Happy Juneteenth." Juneteenth was actually June 19th is the celebration of it. And I did a post on it today, so look on my feed. It's about the fact that it took almost 2.5 years for the country, for the United States, to hear that slaves were free. See, so some knew it, but in the article, the link, it shows that Texas didn't acknowledge it. So many black churches, and so because of technology, some people they hadn't even heard about the Emancipation Proclamation, or they chose not to. And so, so when you think about those slaves who may have not been fighting, or, so therefore they didn't get the news when the war ended. All they may have said, maybe the war wasn't being fought where they were. So they weren't getting the news that there was no more fighting going on. They got the news that you're still a slave. So they didn't even get the news. That's technology. And then, so that's one of the things so that's why today is celebrated as Juneteenth. And I posted, I didn't put Happy Juneteenth, I put Aware Juneteenth, because it's something we're aware of. I wasn't aware of it, actually. I'd heard of it. I just thought it was in June, and I never actually knew the date or the pure history behind it. When you get the history behind it, just share it with one another. We don't have to be upset about, well, that's black stuff, and that's Jewish stuff, and that's, Italian stuff, and that's male, female. Let's share the information. We got a lot in common. So, why don't we share the information so that we can understand one another's culture? And guess what it's going to go back to? The perspective of where we're coming from. Because even I'm coming from my perspective as an uncle. Then my perspective is also as a black man. Then my perspective is also as someone who's 63 years old. See, you start to add up all the different perspectives of where you come from and how you accept information, and then how you share it. And then you start to see how wonderful it is to be you. And here's another thing that connects that technology with the Juneteenth thing. Many black churches have what they call a watch night service. That's on the New Year's Eve. There's what's called a watch night service, and the history is it's also called Freedom's Eve. It's a Christian religious service held on New Year's Eve and associated in many African American churches with a celebration and remembrance of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was enacted on January 1st, 1863, which freed slaves in the Confederate States during the American Civil War. In other words, there was even though the war ended in 1862, the Emancipation Proclamation took place January 1963. Again, no technology, no one knew it, especially the southern states who had lost and didn't want to give it up to the freedom, didn't let the slaves know that they were actually free. So a lot of slaves found out about the fact that they were freed on that January 1st was the actual date. So on New Year's Eve, the ones that did know, they prayed and huddled in churches and safe spots, waiting for January 1st to hit so that they could be freed men and women. And in fact, again, back to that link that we talked about for Juneteenth, after Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination, many members of the black community took part in a rally on Juneteenth. And that's also where it got a little bit more of its energy. So, hey, Fruity. So as you start to look at those things, learn new things about your history. I have to admit, again, I knew about the watch hour. And I've been to churches that we celebrated that, and I love it. But I did not really know the history of Juneteenth. And go back and wish someone an aware Juneteenth. You can call it a happy Juneteenth, but I like to just put different words to things. But let's end this broadcast by remembering that we have to ask ourselves, those of you who joined us late, the numbers that you see in the feed are people identifying with who they are and what perspective they come from when they're receiving a message. Are you living your life as an aunt and uncle from a large city, from a small town, a grandmother? Those are the different perspectives that we have, and that we have to recognize that all these perspectives are in life, We're dealing with people every single day. That's why you see all the turmoil in our political system, you know. And I'm not going to worry about making a negative message about that. There's always someone that disagrees with you. Can you find a way to agree to disagree and still stay in harmony? And the truth is, yes, you can. But the key is knowing who you are. See, since I know who I am, I don't have to be upset with what you don't agree with about me. I I can honor you for what you believe because I honor me and I understand. You know what? You can't get me to stop believing that. So I have to recognize it. Wow, I can't get you to stop believing what you believe since we don't agree on those things. So since you are just that passionate about your belief, I respect that because I can understand that passion because I have that same passion about what I believe. And in fact, one of the things, Eve, as we talk about Juneteenth, I happen to have on my shirt is my Obama shirt with Dr. King, and it says, what does it say? Dream fulfilled. You know, Dr. King dream, and you know, and then Obama was the outcome of that dream. But that was based on just showing that a step had been taken in our country's history. Y'all, we got a lot more steps to take, and we may not get to see them all. But please see those steps by recognizing who you are. Just to go back, recognizing who you are. Keep the traditions that you keep. And then if you don't, make some new traditions so that you can teach. Don't beat up our kids. Teach our kids so that you can let them know, and don't teach them from a negative way of, you know, those damn this and that. No, say, hey, here's, you know, for instance, I say, here's what the kings do. I'm a king, and here's what our name, why our name is important. Here's how we act in situations. We don't blow off and we don't abuse women and beat up children and now I'm thinking of stuff off the top of my head, but the thing is, show them the pride in who you are and what your family has been about all this time. One of the persons that was on here, and I don't know if he stayed on, but Dondi, you know, his mother and father, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Martin, have just been, we grew up in the projects, and Haas and his mother, you know, we've got people in the projects who were just wonderful supporters of everybody in the projects. And I go back to Dondi, Mr. and Mrs. Martin, because they did a lot to help us, being involved with the young people. You know, Haas's mother, Mechi, we loved her. Everybody knew her, you know, and she was really popular. My mother was a big community woman. There's just a lot of good things that we have going on in our lives, y'all. So keep identifying who you are, keep making a difference, and aware Juneteenth to you, and aware that your life is a wonderful thing. P.S. By the way, that just made me think about Joy, Joy, just one you. That's my new T-shirt that's coming out. If you haven't put your order in, get it in by June 21st. That's this Friday, and if you watch it on Wednesday, but get your order in by June 21st so that you can get the discount. Because I actually ordered the shirts to take, to use on my sister's bus ride, her lobster feast bus ride, and then I just ordered some extras. So when they run out, I don't necessarily reorder them. Okay, but if I can order enough of them, I'll be happy to pass on that discount price to you, because after the discount is over, then the price goes up online. All right, so get your Joy shirts, Joy, just one you. Without you, certain things would not happen. That's why you need to identify, because you need to know who you are. Thank you. God bless you. And I'll see you, Graham, for life. I'm going to just quickly, Tina, I am going to put that focus thing up there again for you. I love having you in my homes. But thank you. Are you doing this weekly? Weekly, Tina. I do Blue Wednesday every Wednesday. And the times when I don't do it is because something's happening in my schedule, okay? I want my Joy t-shirt. The link it's on my website, sportyking.com. And I want my Joy. Oh, Deb Joy, yeah, you would want. I love you, Deb Joy, right? It's at sportyking.com, but also I think you can find the link if you scroll down in my thread here on Facebook, but they're still going to take you to my website to order it, and it's at sportyking.com, all right? And who else? Let's see. I love Mr. Wong. Y'all don't know Deb Joy Hart. I'm Mr. Wong and she's Mrs. White, and then because we're Wong and White about a lot of stuff. Okay, God bless you too, Haas. I'll just go on and say these shout outs at the end. Grant for life. Yeah, by the way, y'all, that's Grant Projects where a lot of us grew up, and we have a ball. Thanks again. Over and out. See you soon. Ciao.